So I would like to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us today. This forum is being recorded by Brian from BCTV. Thank you, Brian. The purpose of this forum is to meet our current select board candidates and ask a few questions. Just to go over some voting logistics really quickly, we have early voting at Town Hall that is now available during Town Clerk's office hours, which are Monday through Thursday, I believe 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. On Wednesday, April 20th, there will be an informational session with the candidates at regular select board meeting beginning at 5:30 p.m. That info can be found in the select board agenda section of the town website. On Tuesday, April 26th, there will be in-person voting at the Putney Fire Station from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'd like to introduce you to Putney's own Jack Spannerman, who is a recent political science graduate from UVM and will be supporting Zoom management throughout this and will be picking questions. So your questions can go into the chat. For Zoom logistics, we are keeping all of the guests muted. There are 6 candidates. We have an hour and a half, and that's a lot to get through. So Jack is going to pick the questions and Jack will ask them, and he may consolidate. If there are many questions that are similar, he may consolidate those. Please limit your question length so that we can hear from candidates. Please do not grandstand or speechify in your questions. Please identify yourself by voting name at the end of your question if your screen name does not do so. Meg will repeat the questions back to candidates for clarity. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to respond. Any question asked in the chat that we are unable to ask in the forum will be sent to candidates after the forum. They may be consolidated and simplified depending on the length. Candidates can respond to the huddle in writing, and we will compile any answers submitted and forward them out to the community by Friday, April 15th. We will be moderating for time throughout the entire forum. Candidates will have a 15-second grace period if they go over time, and then they will be muted. And now I'd like to introduce Meg Mott, our town moderator and professor of politics.
Great. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate all the hard work you did to organize this event. And thank you to all 6 of our candidates who are running for these 2 positions on the Putney Select Board. Usually I have quite a bit to say about how people should comport themselves. Always assuming good intentions is a key way of thinking about a public discussion. But because of the nature of this particular Zoom, we aren't going to be hearing directly from voters. So my main concern is directed at all our beautiful candidates, and that is to, if you can, listen to each other and reinforce points where you feel like there's some overlap. And to be clear where you disagree. That's just, we're all going to be making decisions, and any sort of clarity we can get on overlap of positions and where people disagree is useful. And as everybody knows, the first time through, we'll only have 5 minutes for your introductions, and we will go. I'm going to suggest first we'll hear from the 1 year, Bryce, Laura, Parry, Peg. Sorry, I didn't follow the alphabetization. So I'll jump down to Parry and then go up to Peg. And then we'll turn to the 2 years, which is Charles and Elizabeth. So that's how we'll begin the introductions. Are you candidates ready for this first round, where all you need to do is to explain to the voters why you're running and what you see as your job should you be elected to the select board? So let us begin with no more beginning comments. Let us get right to it. And Bryce, are you ready for your 5-minute introduction?
I am, sure. Yeah. I'm Bryce Hodson, and I'm a lifelong resident of Putney. I've been here about 49 years. So in this area, even though I did grow up on the other side of the town and went to Westminster Center School, Putney was so to speak. I went to Putney care the Mondin as my and you know, just I've been here my whole life, even though I've traveled quite a bit extensively. I've worked at the book press, but I've also milked cows in St. Croix, and I also went to school for environmental science. So one of the schools being SIT, where my father was the director of the World Issues Program. So I've been in and around Putney my whole life. And when my father gave us property, we moved to the other side of the town line. So now I'm a Putney resident for the last about 15 years. I also landscape, so I do that in town in Westminster West. So I feel a big connection between the two. And I have two little children who are both in the Putney Central School. So, you know, one of my main reasons is to ensure that they have the ability to stay on our 100 acres and continue there. You know, it would be a shame to have to break the 100 acres up. So that's one of the main reasons. And I guess the only other real reason was when I talked to JJ, I call him JJ, but Jonathan Johnson, he was our town clerk. And the upsetting thing was during town meeting, the election, the straw that broke the camel's back for me to go and become, to run, was that only 600 people out of the 2,000 registered voters in Putney actually voted. So I hear a lot of screaming by a lot of people because, you know, a lot of people in town know me as like the unofficial mayor of Putney because I know everyone and I seem to get along with everyone. So, you know, it's kind of upsetting that, you know, so many people complain about things, but then when it comes time to vote and make decisions, they actually don't do it. So I'm not sure. I think that's a ongoing problem in the country, but, you know, it'd be nice to try and figure out a way to solve that, you know. Anyways, I guess that's kind of pretty much it, you know.
Great. Thank you very much, Bryce, for giving us a sense of your connection to Putney and why you decided to run. We'll now turn to Laura Campbell. What do you wish to tell voters?
Good evening. My name's Laura Campbell, and I'm very pleased to be on this panel. And I am here because I've spent 10 months attending every committee and commission meeting that I possibly could get to in Putney, trying to unravel the workings of governance in our town. And it's really wonderful to be among people that are willing to serve. There is a shortage of people willing to volunteer on these committees and commissions. At this point, I'm serving on the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Advisory Committee, or about to start serving. I hope I'll be appointed. But it's been hard to find where one commission or committee starts and the next one begins. They're very intertwined, and I've only been able to make sense of it by attending as many as I possibly could. So you know me as the Putney repeater. I was here in 1971 with my 12 TP poles and my 200 pounds of canvas because I knew I'd need alternative housing as a graduate student up at Antioch. And when I came back after 18 years, I lived in affordable housing at the good graces of generous friends, paid a rent, but it certainly wasn't market level rent. So affordable housing is an issue that I have faced throughout the 32 years that I've been back. I've lived 16 years all told at Putney Meadows, with 12 years being on a Section 8 housing voucher. That waiting list has been closed now for about 15 years. But I want to say that I know that there are very few people living in affordable housing in our community who vote. I am one of them. There may be others. And my hope is that perhaps we'll start to hear more from the people that are living in subsidized housing as full members of our community. And I have had the opportunity, it's been so animating attending the town meetings that serving on them must be even more powerful. To have conversations with people throughout the town of every different background and every different socioeconomic existence, and to hear what their vision for Putney is. And I hear that also in the meetings, although sometimes it's a little harder to distill. So thank you for listening. I'm happy to be here and eager to hear your questions.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you very much, Laura. We'll now turn to Parry, who is the third person to speak for the one-year position on the select board.
Hello, my name is Parry Philips. I've lived in Putney for 25 years. Before that, I lived in Brookline, just over the mountain. I have 3 kids, ages 4, 5, and 8. 2 go to Putney Central right now. Next year, the 3rd one will join them. I'm running to be on the select board because there's not a lot of young people in the town that are trying to be a part of the select board, and this is my first time ever trying to do any of this stuff. I'm very new to all of it, but I just want to make a difference in my town, and that's pretty much why I'm running. Short and simple.
Short and simple. Okay, Parry, thank you for that, for keeping it under the 5 minutes, but giving us a sense of who you are. So then we'll turn to our 4th candidate for the one-year position, and that is Peg Alden.
Hi there, folks. I'll do a quick introduction at first for people who don't know me. I've lived in Putney for 40 years. I have a little house right here in the village. I'm directly behind the post office, in the yellow house behind the post office. I have a daughter who went to Putney Central School, and I've worked at Landmark College for 20 plus years. So Putney, although I've traveled around a lot for my work, Putney's been pretty central to my existence for a long time. So I had to sit with this question about why am I running? And I kind of had to laugh because I kept asking myself, why am I doing this? Peg, why am I running? You know, it's an unpaid job, long meetings, lots of details, not a super glamorous thing to be doing. I'm going to have to learn a lot of new things. And on top of all that, I have to be here and kind of compete with my neighbors and participate in this Zoom thing, which makes me profoundly uncomfortable. So I'm like, why am I doing this? And the reason why I'm doing it is because, for 2 reasons. One, because of, I think it's the right time for me to serve Putney, and I think it's the right time for Putney to have me serve. So although I've always considered myself, I care deeply about Putney. I was a single mom working full time, and it didn't allow me a lot of opportunity to participate in, at least formally, in town operations. So instead I did what I could do in other places. I started the school garden. I volunteered for the food shelf. Took my civic engagement students all over town, doing all kinds of things, to town meetings and cleaning up Sackett's Brook and things like that. And, participating in Green Up Day, and anybody who's been in Putney for Halloween probably knows we have a campfire in our driveway every year. And if you've been around long enough, you might know the talking pumpkin that we used to have here. But anyways, after my daughter left, I felt like I had time to participate in town in the way the town is run. And I've learned in the work that I've been doing in the last couple of years with a national organization that works on voting rights and things like that, I've just become much more committed to government as a way of caring for each other. And so that's what I feel like I want to bring back here to Putney, is I want to use my role on the select board as a way to care for my community. So that's why it works for me, and why I think it works for Putney right now, for me to be on the select board, is because we're going from 3 to 5. I think that there's going to be a lot of changes, and I think I've got some good skills to help with those transitions. I'm a cooperative and super team player, creative problem solver. I am really, really organized. And I can balance a lot of things. I'm thoughtful. I can pull people together. And probably above everything else, I get stuff done. I'm a doer, and I get a lot of stuff done. And like everywhere, I feel like Putney's got a lot of tension right now. We're not unique. This is happening everywhere, right? So I'm eager to bring what I have to Putney and help bridge some of the differences, and helps heal some of the wounds that we've had over conflicts in our community, as well as COVID. And I just think it's a time to to come together. And there's some exciting opportunities to do that. And I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful. I see the challenges ahead of us, and I also see the opportunities. And I want to be part of creating a future that works for the most of us that I possibly can. And to me, that's what government's about. So here I am. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Peg. With that, we've heard from all 4 candidates for the 1-year position. So we will now turn to the 2 candidates who are running for the 2-year position. We'll go in alphabetical order by first name, and that means Charles. What would you like to tell the voters of Putney about who you are and why you're running?
My name is Charlie Raubicheck. I live at 350 West Hill Road, right near the Putney School, with my wife, Ann McDonald. We've been here since 2007. In terms of background, I practiced law for 45 years. I'm now retired. And I was an adjunct professor of law for 30 years at the same time. My board experience, which I think is key here, I'm currently a member of the Development Review Board in Putney. I'm a member of the Groundworks Collaborative Board in Brattleboro. I have been on the board of Yellow Barn here in Putney. And for many years, I served on the Board of Trustees of the Riverside Church in New York City, which is a nationally known multicultural, multi-denominational church. Why am I running? I'm running because I want to contribute to this very special community. I have broad board experience, as I think I set forth for you. I also think I'll bring balanced judgment to this job. I remember when I was a young lawyer, I worked for one of the senior partners, who one day called me into his office and he said, "Let me give you a piece of advice." He said, "Why are our clients paying us? Why do they come to us? Because they want our judgment. You must know the law, but we are valuable because of our judgment." And I think that I can bring a balanced judgment based on my many years of legal experience, my many years of educational experience, and my essentially advice to clients over the years, which I think has been extremely valuable to them. Hopefully they feel the same way. They probably did because they paid most of my bills. But I really think that being on the select board, you get a lot of information, you deal with a lot of different views of different folks in town. And in the end, in terms of how you vote on a particular issue, you've got to have judgment. And you've got to take all the facts and circumstances into account. I've been spending my whole life doing this, and I would like to contribute this to our town.
Mhm. Great. Thank you very much, Charlie. We will now turn to our second candidate for the 2-year position, and that is Elizabeth Warner.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Warner. I came here initially to Putney to attend the Putney School. And I found for the first time in my life a sense of community. I learned about food and where food came from. I learned how to garden. I learned how to cook, which then turned into my business, which I have had. I had Elizabethan Fair Catering here for 23 years. I employed many people over the years. I donated to many organizations. I fundraised for many organizations. I have tremendous amount of experience working in ski management, food management, and in patient advocacy and elder advocacy. I worked at the Gathering Place as a case manager and advocate for seniors for a few years. I have worked with many private clients through patient advocacy. I understand and I'm aware of the silver tsunami that we have right now. I do feel that there's a lot of siloing of information and of money. And I also feel that we have a real opportunity here in Putney to collaborate and to build upon this wonderful community in a really inclusive way in which all of us are really putting in. And one of the things that has happened tonight is a perfect example of where the collaboration falls short. We have many people who cannot get on this meeting tonight. We have access issues to the website, which is very, very difficult to navigate. We need to increase accessibility. We need to have opportunities for more engagement. And we need a really good strategic plan for growing this town. We have 250 million climate change refugees that are moving northward and inward. It has already started. Without real planning, both economic development and housing development simultaneously, we are being short-sighted in what we are doing in this town. We are right now poised and in a place where we can do so much better for the future of this town. I would like my children to be able to come back here and to be able to have jobs or raise families here. But we need to do the right planning. We need to be strategic. We need to be thoughtful, and we need to be inclusive. And we have issues right now in inclusivity on this meeting and on many meetings that happened over this year, which I have been attending almost every meeting I possibly could square time away for. So I'm looking forward to serving this community to help us engage in more collaboration. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Before we turn to questions, Laura, do you want to address, just to explain this issue that we have with a number of people allowed on the call?
Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, the Zoom package that we were gifted for this meeting only allows for 100 people. And I have honestly never held a forum before that went over 100. So it was really unexpected. And I humbly apologize. It was not intended to lock anybody out. We have definitely tried to upgrade the package, and it can't be done mid-meeting. So this was not purposeful at all. We did include BCTV. They are here recording. We do intend to address questions that are not able to be asked in this meeting by forwarding them to candidates. So we will do our best to make sure that everybody's included. And just like under any other circumstances, sometimes a building can only take so much and the Zoom meeting can only take so much. So I'm very sorry for that. We really don't want anybody locked out.
You're
But
locked out right now. I think this is
Okay, Elizabeth, sorry,
Elizabeth.
I'm sorry, you'll have to, your point has been made and it's an important point. So we're trying to get that information out there. I think the maybe the one good piece is this recording will be available on BCTV maybe soon. I don't know what the actual time, but it should be available fairly soon. All right, I would like to move on to questions unless there's anything else about Laura Laura Chapman that you wanted to say.
No, just a reminder that there's a 2-minute time limit for each answer because we have so many candidates and limited time.
Great. Thank you very much for that. So once again, candidates, you will be given the 15-minute warning. It seemed like that didn't have to happen for the 5 minutes, but that will be part of the mix. And this sign, if you can see my screen, I might make that when I hear from Laura about the 15 minutes. I'm going to suggest that for the 15 seconds. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. So I'm going to suggest that we now take a question. And Jack, what do you have for us?
Yes, I see all kinds of questions. So I think an important one to start with is there was a question about 3 things that each candidate would like to see improved in Putney.
Okay, that's a great specific question. 3 things. And just to mix things up a little bit, I'm going to begin with the first year going in reversed order. Not first year, 1-year term. So we're going to start with Peg and then we'll go in reverse order. And then I'll do the same thing with the 2-year term. Peg, how would you like to answer this question?
Oh, good question. Well, I don't know that it's exactly improvements, but things that are priorities for me would be, going from this 3 to 5 year, from this 3 board member to 5 board member model is going to be a big transition. And I'd like to see that done smoothly and cooperatively. I'd like diversity and inclusion is a super important goal of mine. So I'd like to see the town make sure that we continue to be inclusive and welcoming. And I think the last thing is that I want to make sure that we have a process where we're going to get a lot of money from this American Rescue Plan Act. And I want us to work collaboratively together to use that money in a way that builds community and maybe can bridge some of the gaps that we have right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Peg. The same question that we'll now pose to Parry. What 3 things do you think Putney should improve?
I think we should improve our policing because I see very few cops in town all the time. And I know we only get 40 hours, which doesn't stretch very far over a week. But I've called the cops one time for something and they still haven't gotten back to me. It's like, it's not that we don't have reliable cops, but it's like, we're not a priority for the police in town. And I also think that we can kind of come together more as a town and include more people by having, like, I'm not exactly sure, like, certain things that go on in town are pretty concentrated on people. Like, a lot of people wouldn't go to it because it's not something that they're into. But we need something that everybody in town can be a part of. Mm-hmm. And I also believe that we have a lot of business in town, but our businesses in town are pretty directed at certain people. Like, I don't shop anywhere in town because none of the town shops have what I want, or they're just they're not directed towards me. Everything that I shop for is in Brattleboro, and we just need more things that everybody can shop for in town. We just to make more money and keep the money local.
Great. Thank you very much, Parry. Laura Campbell, what 3 things do you wish to tell the voters about that you wish to see improved?
Oh, I don't have to unmute. I got unmuted. Okay. I'd like the town website to become more informative and accessible so that I could find things like the zoning regulations. So I wouldn't have to trot myself up to the town hall and beg and grovel. And actually, I would love to see the website updated so that the contact information for the members on the committees and the commissions are their contact information is up to date and available. Let's see. Here's another thing I'd like to see. I don't know the conventions necessarily of town governance, but I would like to see individuals in chairing positions on a single commission or committee rather than doubling up, or so that we have the same person chairing 1 or 2 or more committees. And let's see. I also think that we need to pay attention to our water source. That's the wetlands. That's the water reserves that we have for the town, which are at risk right now. And that's what the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee tends to involve itself with. That's 3.
That's 3. Thank you for catching yourself, Laura. That's good. Thank you very much. We will now move to the 4th candidate who's running for a 1-year position, and that's Bryce. What are your 3 things?
My 3 things would be 1, making sure and improving our infrastructure. By campaigning for this position, I, again, know everybody. So I went down and talked to somebody who works at the wastewater treatment plant, and he told me that we can handle the new Windsor housing that we're putting in, but we need to realize that that will put us at the cap of the wastewater treatment plant. So we can't develop any more in Putney until we actually improve it. So maybe use of the federal money that we're getting might be a really intelligent idea to earmark that. I would like to make sure that the select board put in their budget that we were earmarking a certain amount of money to maintain infrastructure, i.e. the wastewater treatment plant, but also the sidewalks are terrible. My children walk from the school down, and down Campbell Hill, they're a mess. So I'm not sure why we put in new sidewalks, but what would be another one here? Making sure that I live in East Putney, and so making sure that all the natural areas, i.e. the class 4 roads that we all have that allow everybody access to, would remain open. I know there's kind of a contentious thing going on in my area where the select board didn't want to help us improve the bridge so it could be usable to use East Putney Brook Road, because that also would access the Westminster Town Forest, which has an incredible heron rookery with 2 ginormous beaver ponds and the entire
15 seconds.
Okay. And my 3rd one, I guess, would be making sure that we put in green space in town and a park for my kids to play in. There's no space in downtown Putney for children to actually play. Sorry.
Great. Thank you very much. No, that was good. You cut yourself off at time. We'll now go in reverse alphabetical order for the 2-year position. So we'll begin with Elizabeth. What 3 things do you wish to see improving in Putney?
Well, I'd like to say every candidate so far has presented some great ideas. I agree with really thoughtful use of the ARPA money. I also want to support the website being more accessible, easier for people to understand, find notices, etc. And then a big thing I've been a proponent of is engaging an urban planner and to really build a strategic plan for the best possible development of both affordable housing, businesses, and infrastructure, and that we do this with collaboration. And the third thing is, I think any zoning that gets changed to the entire village in the future should go through Australian ballot so that everybody is aware of what is going on and can engage properly in the process through their vote.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Charlie, you will have the last 3 wishes for Putney. What do you want to see improving?
Well, my big thing, so to speak, is revitalization of downtown, as we may call it. As you all know and are clearly aware, since the Great Recession, since Irene, subsequently, there have been businesses that have folded. There are 4 or 5 storefronts up Kimball Hill from the general store that are empty. And most recently, the bookstore that we had right down around the corner from the general store, across from Town Hall, basically, has folded and moved to Brattleboro. I think a vital downtown is really critical to this village. As Parry pointed out, he goes down to Brattleboro to buy a number of things. One thing that might contribute to this is the welcoming of new people from the affordable housing complex that's coming into town. New types of businesses, more people shopping, more cohesive community in terms of that happening. I also want to put in a plug for West Hill Road, where I live. The speed limit has never been enforced. People come whipping around the corners. Trucks of all sorts with all sorts of cargo are barreling up and down the road. It would be useful, I think, and certainly create a safer environment in the area of town that I live in, to have policing
15 seconds.
of some type. The third thing, I guess I've been asked to do a third thing. I think that the traffic rules downtown,
Time.
particularly in the center, could be better enforced.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing your sentence to a full stop. Appreciate that. We're now going to take a second question from Jack, and I'll go to the 2-year candidates first, and then I'll go to the 1-year. So Jack, what's the next question?
All right. I think the next question is Nick's question, which was, what is the affordable housing challenge in Putney, and what steps would you take to address it?
Great. So this question is very specific on affordable housing and what specifically, how do you see the problem and how would you address it? As I said, we're going to go to the 2-year, and this time we're going to go with the alphabet. So Charles, you just ended, but I'm going to put you back on the 2 minutes.
Certainly, Meg. This is an issue of affordable housing that is statewide. The state has a policy of creating more affordable housing in communities, irrespective of where they're located in the state. And obviously, Putney is a community where there are folks who can't necessarily afford the higher rents. I mean, Laura Campbell amply illustrated that. We do have made some progress there. The Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, working with the town, has established plans. There's been a public hearing, and the Development Review Board, of which I'm a member, has granted a permit. There is clearly, from what I gather, a number of folks in town who are not in favor of this. But the town needs to attract and broaden its social and economic base by having this project. Here we are in a climate where people are not only being driven from their homes in foreign climes, which we see on our screens every day in Ukraine, in Afghanistan. Afghanistan folks are coming to the United States, they're being welcomed. I personally feel that it's the right thing to do. It's something that is noble.
Time.
Hey,
For 15
sorry. I didn't-
seconds. I'm sorry.
15
That was
seconds.
15 seconds.
Yeah, okay, good.
15 seconds.
Yeah.
Certainly everybody here has a good heart and has great intentions. I would ask that in considering this question, we remember the words of President Lincoln and turn to the better angels of our nation, of our nature in approaching this issue.
Great. Thank you very much. We will now turn to Elizabeth Warner. The question is about affordable housing. How do you see the problem and what would you want to do?
I think one of the problems that we have related to the affordable housing we currently have is we have it with the same management organization. Many of us have seen articles and experienced difficulty with this organization, and we have that type of housing. I feel we should be gearing up to build, as in the presentation with Jacob Hemrick at the Affordable Housing Committee, where he talked about cottage clusters of affordable homes of 1,250 to 1,500 square feet, and identifying land. There is some land that is in the village, and infill sites where maybe these cottages can be developed, and that we work towards alternative affordable housing options. It's more geared towards home ownership and also more for senior housing as well. And we are really at a great junction right now where we can make a great plan to provide more affordable housing and more diverse housing stock for the entire community to benefit from.
Great. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. We'll now move over to the one-year candidates, and we'll go alphabetically by first name. Bryce.
Can you repeat the question? I forgot.
Yeah, and the question is about how do you see the affordable housing issue and what would you do to address it?
Okay. I totally understand because I have many friends on different economic means, and I kind of feel like that as a select board member, you represent the actual citizens of Putney, and I'm not opposed to bringing other people in, but if that makes people in our town not be able to be a citizen of Putney anymore, that's a little upsetting. And I understand that with federal money, you don't really get that choice. But going back to the infrastructure plan is, I feel like the town of Putney isn't quite ready for that. I mean, we have many issues at the fire department where we can't even find enough volunteers. So how, if we invite more people in, how are we then supposed to support that if our infrastructure isn't up to a snuff? So I feel like we kind of jumped the gun, and maybe that was just because there was money. But I'm in total support of affordable housing in the state and in town. But I'm also wondering, since we're the most eligible in between Bellows Falls and Brattleboro, where does the next one go? We know that 25 units is not going to solve the problem, So does the next one go in Westminster, who doesn't have a wastewater treatment, or Dummerston, who doesn't, or does Putney get the 5th one, the 6th one, the 7th, and so on? And then what is the actual city plan for where all these things go? If we're capped out already on the wastewater treatment plant, I just wonder, has it really been thought through in terms of this, or, was it just, I mean, I know there were plenty of meetings involved in
15
the
seconds.
decision making on. So I guess I'm in total favor, but I feel like the town of Putney needs to make sure its infrastructure is adequate first. So that would be my answer.
Great. Thank you, Bryson, for coming to a close within time. We will now move to Laura Campbell.
Let's see. I just want to clarify that affordable housing is a critical need, and I support that challenge, meeting that challenge fairly. In Putney, we have this green space which characterizes, for me, the values and ethos of the community. And I don't want to see conflict set up between what's precious and the critical need for housing. So I think we need to be adventuresome in finding locations where truly the land would not have another use. I find that the location that's much in discussion right now does and has created unnecessary alarm and conflict in the community. And so I think that an alternative has to be found. A greater population, an intergenerational population, a population from elsewhere is going to have special needs, and I don't feel the town is quite prepared. So I guess my overarching feeling is that haste makes waste, and I don't want to ruin what we have here that's very precious. I want to perpetuate that and also provide housing. I do know that housing is coming into the community, so I know that affordable housing has to be part of that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Laura. We'll now turn to Parry. What are your thoughts on affordable housing, and what would you want to do about it?
I feel there is a great need for affordable housing. I support this affordable housing. I would like to see it put somewhere else besides at the community garden, and that I know of a couple places, like right next to the Putney Landing, there's 11 acres that the Putney Inn owns that they can't do anything with between the highway and the affordable housing that's there now. And they're not allowed to do anything with it. I also know that the trailer park on High-Low Biddy Road in Putney is a Wyndham and Windsor housing thing. And they have 6 trailers in there right now that are falling down, and they want to get rid of them, and they could put more housing in there. They just put solar panels at the end of High-Low Biddy Road. They're a big field of solar panels that could help our town out. And I just feel that there's more places that we could put it besides there. And there's a lot of places that we could put it. So there's plenty of room for people. We just got to find the place for it.
Great. Thank you, Parry. And finally, we'll turn to Peg Alden.
Sure. If the question is, how do I feel about the affordable housing issue in Putney right now? I'm going to speak to the project that's up, because that seems to be the main point here. And I guess my feelings about it are, I feel proud of it. I'm really proud of what's been designed. I'm really proud of the collaboration that's happened in our town to make that a possibility. And I'm really excited about the project. I live right in the village. and I watch this village from my window, and I'm excited about what I envision the housing project coming to the village will mean. And then I just want to close by saying, well, that what I think about it doesn't really matter as a select board member. As a public citizen, I have an opinion, but as a select board member, this is not going to be my decision. So I think we shouldn't be making select board decisions based on our opinions about the affordable housing, that we should be looking more towards who on our select board can help us move forward in a positive way. Once whatever decision gets made, gets made. It's not in our purview to make the decision about the permitting. That's up to the laws, that's up to our permitting process, that's up to our town plan. So, and our development review board. So those are some of my opinions. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Peg. Do we have, I think we've heard from all our candidates on this important issue, affordable housing, and we will now turn back to Jack. Do you have a third question?
Why, yes, I do.
Excellent.
There's one more question here. And it is, what personal quality do you think is essential for serving on the select board? And we're asking candidates to maybe set an example of them demonstrating that quality as well.
Okay, this is an interesting question,
Yeah.
candidates. You're being asked to show what quality you feel are important in a position of the select board, and to give us some examples of how you have. I think that question is asking how you have those kind of characteristics. So I am now going to go in a different direction, which means I'll start with the first year candidates, and we will go in reverse order. So Peg, you are back on. I know. I hope you got a drink of water.
I know. So qualities that are important. I think a community spirit, ability to be able to bridge differences, creative problem solving, be it budgeting abilities, all of those things. And anyways, those are strong points for me. So I feel like I'm eager to bring them to town. So
Great. Thank you, Peg. Parry, what do you have that you feel like that you can model that's important for your vision of being on the select board? And you'll need to unmute yourself, Parry.
Uh-oh.
I wasn't muted.
Yeah.
I feel that you need to be able to listen to what your community needs and respond respectfully and quickly, and that you have to be a friendly person and take everybody's views into consideration. And when I drop my kids off at school, I try and talk to as many people as possible and just be as big a member of everything as I can.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Parry. Laura Campbell, what do you think is important? Characteristics of being a select board member. And Laura Campbell, do you need to unmute yourself?
There we go. Courage. As a woman, I feel courage is the quality that I have, and it will be needed because I have witnessed women in meetings of our commissions and committees being dismissed, being told that what they've brought up is not relevant, being told that they will be called on later, or it will come up later when it fails to come up. And I think it takes tremendous courage to respectfully make one's voice heard. And I would extend that to people that come to meetings who are encouraged to attend these meetings too. It's a courageous thing to enter into the realm of change and the discussion of change, and to share one's observations fairly with the responsible governing body, and to dare, I think, to put into words and trust one's own perceptions of what's going on and to share those with others. I think there's a little deficit there that needs to be overcome, and courage will be the answer.
Great. Thank you, Laura. And Bryce, what do you think about this question about personal characteristics?
In terms of personal characteristics, I think, everybody's touched on really good points, and that we need to be diverse, like traveling internationally, you can't, group yourself with just Americans or just, and so just being a good listener and understanding what everybody has to say before you make any decisions, I think is the biggest thing, and getting participation for sure. But also, making sure that the information gets out there, I think is a big, as well as budget, budget, running my own business, you learn a lot, you can't go buy certain things, or, you'd really love to have that new, that new thing, but it doesn't work that way. And so I agree that everybody, having a community that's really diverse, as well as, economically responsible. I don't know how it all works like that, but but definitely listening for sure to the community.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Bryce. And Elizabeth, we're moving over to the 2-year positions going in reverse alphabetical order. Elizabeth, what personal characteristics would you want to see that you have as a member of the select board?
I would like to focus on my fiduciary responsibility to the town as a whole in my decision-making processes as a select board member. And I'd also like to say that I'm a very empathic person, and I am a listener. I'm also pretty vocal and engaged, and I feel that we need more women involved. We need more people of color. We need literally more involvement of every type of human we can get. And I have tried my very best to engage in the process here. And I have tried to be as courageous as possible, using Laura Campbell's word of courage. And I have found some difficulties in getting messages across, getting questions answered. And I'm really hopeful that going forward, that we can improve upon that all for the entire well-being of the town.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Charlie, you will be the last one to answer this question.
Well, I think one of the key things is what experience you've had on board. How they operate, how views are expressed, how votes are taken, how facts are gathered, how decisions are made. I've been on several boards in my time, including currently the Development Review Board and Groundworks. I know how they work, and I believe that I can bring to the post the kind of professional experience in this vein that's needed. Also, I mentioned earlier balanced judgment. You get all sorts of information at Select Board from different sources. People come in with their views. People come in with facts. In making a decision, the Select Board has to have folks on it that are able, with an even keel temperament and approach, to weigh all the competing factors and views that are brought to it in going forward and making decisions on individual issues.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Charlie. And we're ready, I think, for our third question. We're doing such a good job with time. There's a good possibility we may have 4 questions answered this evening. Jack, what's our third question?
All right. Next up is a question about how will you, candidates, support equity and inclusion in Putney for everyone, no matter race, color, sexual orientation, gender, religion, etc.?
Great. Let's see. I think I will now start with the 2-year positions, and we will go in alphabetical. And that means, Charlie, you're back up.
Well, I think that the equity and the committee that's been established has done a commendable job in getting this off the ground. I certainly support equity and inclusion. I came from New York City, a multicultural and multiracial church, Riverside, as I mentioned. So this is something that is very important to me. I also think that the Equity and Inclusion Committee's decision to go around to various businesses and institutions in the town and ask them to explain how they are going to go about fostering education, equity and inclusion in their business practices was a concrete example of how the principles that they articulated when the committee was formed. This second step is a very concrete and positive example about how that can be done. In other words, concrete steps are the key, not merely coming up with policy.
Great, thank you, Charlie. And we'll move to Elizabeth. The question of how do you feel about the diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, and what would you like to see?
I would like to see an expansion of that. I think that over the years that I've been here, we have not done even, a small percentage of what we could do to bring in more diverse folks and to encourage them to engage in the policies and procedures in the town. I'm very happy that we finally have an equity and inclusion committee that has got quite a number of people on it. And I fully support us moving forward with more opportunities for everyone. And I really encourage us to produce homes for families, 3-bedroom homes where more people can actually come and raise their families and be connected to the community, and homes for home ownership for all. And that's going to be really us looking at how we can offset the gigantic costs for building and maybe use grant money, ARPA money to be more creative in how we develop affordable housing for all.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. We'll now move to the candidates for the one-year position, starting with Bryce.
Oh, boy. I guess that's a good question. I think we need to definitely do more in terms of inclusion. Everyone hasn't even an opportunity to sit on these committees and to ensure it. I'm not sure if we need more outreach, and maybe that's something the select board could do, is find a better way to do outreach to make sure that we're reaching everybody and getting them to actually come and volunteer on these committees. I'm just trying to think of other ways to do it. We certainly need a lot more people to to come out and volunteer and all the things that we have going on. There's so many things that we need help with. So I guess that's the answer to my question.
Great. Thank you, Bryce. Laura Campbell. And you may need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Well, I am stumped. All I'm thinking is, wouldn't it be wonderful if there were an affordable housing developer who allotted an apartment to a same-sex couple and another apartment with children as a possibility, and families of color and immigrants from other countries seeking some place to live. Ukrainians, for example. Wouldn't it be wonderful if there were such an affordable housing developer? And if anyone knows of one, give me the name. I'll make the contact. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Laura. And Parry, what are your thoughts on the question of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And you may need to unmute yourself.
Nope.
Good.
I'm muted. I think everybody should be included. Everybody's opinions matter. I have plenty of friends from all different races and creeds and sexual orientations. I try and listen to everybody, and I'm not exactly sure how the town could get more people involved. I think they just need to want to be involved in the sort of things that the town is working with. I have no problem including everybody in a decision.
Great. Thank you, Parry. And Peg, you'll have the final word on this question. And you may need to unmute yourself.
There we go. Okay. I think the diversity, equity, and inclusion question is really complicated because it involves every aspect of our community. It involves our schools. It involves our arts institutions. It involves our businesses. It involves our infrastructure, whether or not somebody in a wheelchair can get around town or not. So it involves all aspects of our community, and it involves so many elements of who we are. You know, it involves our abilities, our disabilities, our age, economics, racial, religious diversity. So I don't have quick solutions here, but I am really proud that we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And like so much in town, I think our job as select board is to really look to the people who we've asked to take a leadership role in a particular thing, and let them guide us. And so I really look forward to working with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and seeing what they have to suggest for us, because I know they're doing a lot of good work.
Great. Thank you, Peg. So it's only a little after 7:07. And for people who came late, what we're doing is we're using the chat function to have generated lots of questions. And then Jack is looking over to see if there's any repeating questions or salient questions to bring to the foreground. Obviously, if you have a specific question, all the candidates, I'm sure, would be willing to respond outside of this forum. Jack, do you have another question for us?
Yes, I do. There's one more about asking candidates to describe their expertise in budgeting and or finances.
Ooh.
Budgeting and financing. That's great. I'm going to switch things up again, just so that one person isn't always beginning and the other person, the same person isn't always ending. So I am going to stay with the 1 year, and I'm going to go in alphabetical order.
Cool.
And Bryce.
In terms of, financial responsibility, and I think that was the question, right?
Yes. Budgeting and
Okay, yeah.
financial chops.
All right. Well, again, like I mentioned before, I've run my own landscaping business for 25 years. And so I understand, how to do a budget and how to be responsible with your money. And, I guess when to borrow money as opposed to, making sure you have a nest egg. When I talked about the infrastructure bill, or infrastructure problem in town, I really want to make sure, that the town puts money aside for these projects that we know are coming, so that we're not caught in the lurch and taxes go up and, people who want to stay here have the right to stay here. So I guess that's, part of my infrastructure though too, was also just mentioning the simple fact to bring, storefronts back, and why do we have X number of buildings that are dilapidated and falling down? So, I mean, responsibility financially is, if somebody can't afford to, maybe fix that, is maybe the town needs to find a way to help them, so that it doesn't look like, it's run down. So I guess that's a little off track, but, also the Putney craft store. My mother, is a leader in the Putney craft store, and they have no storefront. I've asked her that several times, and, there was at the time no availability in town. So, that might be something else too, that it draws in tourism, it allows, people to come in, as well as food, having a young family, there's nowhere to do takeout in town. We drive all the way to Brattleboro, half an hour, 40 minutes, from our house, because we're lazy and we don't want to cook that night. So, and maybe the town could help with
15
storefronts
seconds.
that way. So
Great.
anyways, I guess, I'm a little off track, but there you go.
Thank you, Bryce. We'll move to Laura Campbell.
Uh-oh.
In financing and budgeting,
Yes.
on a personal level, I'm debt-free and solvent, and I'm able to handle the incredible paperwork and accountability that goes with living in affordable housing on an annual basis. Every year, you have to account for every penny you might make and where it went. And it's quite astonishing. However, in terms of municipal budgeting and financing, I am out of my depth, and I admit it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Laura, for that honesty. Parry, what do you have to say about budgeting and finances?
I own my own house. I don't have a mortgage. I feel like I've done pretty good on budgeting and financing in my lifetime. And like Bryce said, budgeting, I go to Brattleboro and I go to Aldi's, where it's the cheapest grocery store in town. And I always try and find the cheapest thing to save money. And it's hard because there's not a lot of options in Putney for anybody to save money, because like you go to the co-op and 2 tomatoes for $6 is outrageous in my opinion, but some people will pay that. And I'd rather go to Aldi's where for $6 I can get 12 tomatoes or anything else. But it takes a lot of thought in budgeting, and like Bryce said, what you need and what you can afford and what you'd like to have and what you can afford. It takes a lot of thought and time. Everybody's got to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Parry. And Peg, what do you have to bring to the budgeting financing?
Well, I have had quite a lot of experience with budgeting and finance in my various jobs at Landmark over the years. I managed a very large federal grant, couple $1 million. And that was, if you've never worked with the federal government before, there's not much budgeting that is any more painful than that in terms of dealing with the details. And the other job I had at Landmark was Director of International Education. And in that role, I was responsible for designing and managing dozens of budgets across many different countries and currencies. And all I can say is I'm really glad that here in Putney, I would be working with town budgets that are in US dollars.
Great. Thank you, Peg. Let's move over to the candidates for the 2-year position. Charles, budgeting and finance. And you'll need to unmute yourself. It appears that you're still muted. Do we have a wizard here?
There we go.
Good, great, thank you.
My technical prowess escapes me. I have been at several law firms on the executive committee or the management committee where we've had to deal with finances and budgeting every year. Also, when I lived in Brooklyn, New York, in this cooperative apartment building that we lived in, I was president of the board of that housing, and we had budgeting issues and we had finance issues, having to deal with banks, having to deal with mortgages, and other issues that co-op boards get involved with. So I've been there to a certain degree, and that's my experience.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Charles. And Elizabeth, you'll have the final word on this question of budgeting and finances. And you'll need to unmute yourself.
Oh,
Thank
there
you.
I am. I've run a successful business for 25 years in Putney. I bought a 200-year-old house that was falling down while starting my business. I started out by building one kitchen and cooking out of there and finishing the other side of the house as I continued to work. I have helped clients budget accordingly to cater their events, their weddings. I have worked in management in both retail and in the ski industry. And I have experienced many opportunities with boards in which we were managing budgets that were exceeded in the millions of dollars. I have worked on capital campaigns and brought in significant dollars to many nonprofit organizations in this area. I have fundraised for NEYT, NECA, the Green Mountain Camp for Girls. I helped take them from in the red to an almost closing camp to in the black and got them through a transition very successfully, where they are now absolutely at the top of their game as far as capacity. I think it's imperative to have fiduciary duty to the entire town when making good decisions as a select board member, and that my door would be open for conversations going forward if I am chosen.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's now 7:17. What do you think,
we can
Laura?
do one more. As long as
Great.
everyone can stick within the 2 minutes, I think we can fit one more in.
Great. Well, people are doing an excellent job.
Yes,
Really
they
want to
are.
commend all our candidates. Jack, do you have another question for us?
Yes, we'll end the night on this note. How would the candidates recommend the town use the ARPA funds?
Oh, great. The ARPA funds question. Can we just go in reverse order? Elizabeth, do you mind if I start with you?
Now, I'm delighted to start about the ARPA money. One of the ideas that I have been percolating is why not clean up the Brown site across from Basketville? Start there. And we can also continue to look at what's needed for the infrastructure of the wastewater treatment plant and the water hookup plant. We have opportunities with properties in this town that we can maybe offer grants to homeowners to add accessory dwelling units or infill housing. And let's be strategic in how we use this ARPA money for the best interests of the whole town.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. And we'll move to Charles.
I think we ought to use the ARPA money, I agree with Elizabeth, wisely and strategically and creatively. One thing, I talk about revitalizing downtown, bringing more businesses in, rejuvenating the businesses that we have in terms of what else they need. While there are certain criteria for getting ARPA money that are set forth in the law, there are other towns that have approached this in a creative way. Guilford, for example, has established a procedure whereby individual citizens of the town can submit ideas to a committee, which we have already formed, but haven't moved forward yet in this area. And the committee then selects ideas that they essentially feel that the town has to prioritize, submit those to the select board. And the select board essentially makes the ultimate call on which projects to ask the state and the federal government to finance with the money that we've been allotted. So there's a process to go through. There's an opportunity, as Elizabeth points out, to be creative here. And I think this money has to be spent within the next several years. We ought to think long and hard about it, but there are certainly projects that I'm sure that we can come up with that fit within the scope of the ARPA umbrella, if you will.
Great. Thank you very much to Charles. We'll now move to Peg. What do you want to do with the ARPA funds?
Sure. Again, what I want to do with the ARPA funds is really the most important question. I don't think, because what's less exciting to me about what I want to do with the ARPA funds is the opportunity it's going to give us as a community to decide together what we want to do. So I'm super excited about the opportunity that's going to bring I'm much more excited about that than I am about my individual ideas for it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Peg. And we'll move to Parry. All right. Do you need to unmute yourself, Parry? This is a new question we ask each other. You may need to unmute. There you are.
I feel one thing is we should do is make a playground for the community people. And we could even put that at where Mountain Falls used to be, or any place else you guys feel fit, because there is nowhere in town for anybody to play except for the school. And I have one kid home all day and she doesn't want to do anything but go play on the playground every time we drive by. But you can't go during school hours. And if I want to go to the playground, I got to go to Westminster or go to Brattleboro, and it's a long drive. And another thing we could do is just improve the town and the people in it. I don't really have much else.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Parry. And we'll move to Laura Campbell. And the unmuting
There we go.
moment. Yes, great.
Time. I have a vision of using the ARPA funds to plow the multifloral roses and the barberry and the buckthorn, and plow up the field to the south of the community garden and expand the community garden and plant some trees and have a playground and a beautiful green space to welcome people to Putney, especially people that live in affordable housing and whose kids' bicycles are piled up on the sidewalks and whose kids are running around in the busy streets. And I think that would be a wonderful use of some ARPA money and not take very much of it either. And while we're doing that, we're looking for alternative locations that won't destroy the beautiful green welcoming space that we have as we approach Putney. So that would be my thought. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Laura. And for the final answer to the question about ARPA funds, we'll have Bryce speak.
I 100% agree with Peg that we as a community should make the decision on what to do with it. One idea I had was I looked up what other communities had done. And one interesting thing to make money off of it, and I know it's legal because another town did it, is they bought up bonds from other towns. So when somebody wanted a bond, they lent their money and made the interest off of it. So maybe that's a way to create a surplus, while doing smaller ideas, like Parry's idea of doing the playground. 100% on board. You know, why are we allowing these places to, you know, kind of be dilapidated and unmaintained in downtown if and when there is money? So those are a couple ideas, you know, as well as just, you know, making sure we save up for what's coming down the road. Because I have a feeling environmentally, like with invasives, I've been to symposiums where the tick population is directly linked to the barberry root. So they winter over in the barberry root. So in order to get rid of them, you know, maybe going after invasives is the way to go, you know. So they're all really good ideas. But being a business owner, the first thing I would say is put money in the bank and save it, you know, for later, because we know we're going to need it, you know, and it might not be there. You know, for anybody who's lived in town or in Vermont, you know, we're the last one to come out of a recession and the first one I feel to kind of go into one. So I know I just don't want to see anybody's taxes go through the roof because there wasn't foresight on that. But yes, everybody making a decision is definitely the way to go.
Great.
So that's my answer.
All right. Thank you very much, Bryce. And thank you to all our candidates. Those were great questions that we got from the voters. And I appreciate everybody being honest and respectful and creative and courageous in your answers. Laura, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you so much to everyone that came out and to all of our candidates. It's really exciting to see how many of you are participating in this. Just a reminder, early voting is happening now. And Wednesday, April 20th, the Select Board will have an informational session that will include all of the candidates starting at their regular meeting at 5:30. I imagine that Zoom, because it's paid for with our tax dollars, is probably not limited. And again, apologize for the fact that this one we are a private group. We have very limited funds. It's all volunteer. I did most of the work to make this happen. And so that was one thing that we clearly missed, but luckily it will be out on BCTV very soon and you'll be able to watch it. And we will also capture the questions that weren't able to be asked within the chat and send them forward to the candidates. We're going to consolidate them a bit and likely remove some of the speech from them, but we will consolidate the questions and forward them to them. And then we will, whoever's willing to answer and forwards them to us, we will put it out as publicly as we can. And yeah, April 26th is in-person voting at the fire station from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. I hope everybody shows up.
Great. Thank you, Laura Chapman and Putney Huddle, for putting this all together.